My goodness, I have myself a Klein in my work stand today. It's aluminum with carbon fiber OCLV chainstays, 58 centimeters as you saw. It's a Q carbon team. So this frame is pretty awesome, but what's more spectacular is this paint job. And I'm gonna go over some details of detailing and my tips and tricks of how to get a frame like this to pop like new after this. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hi, I'm Justin, the guy. Obviously, I have a garage shop. Taking scary how to use bikes one bike at a time.
If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Take two. Welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging with the guy. Hey, I'm Justin, the guy on this old bike series. Today we're going to focus on frame detailing on this beautiful Klein Cube carbon team. The reason why I picked this particular frame, I've been wanting to do another video about detailing frames, but the Klein paint jobs are just known to be spectacular. And also they are referenced when you look at a new bike. It's like, oh, that's kind of like a Klein paint job. So back in the day, 2003 when this was built, actually it was under the Trek umbrella, but they did keep the Klein paint jobs in play through the whole time, which was awesome. Because back originally, the Chehalis, Washington is the plant where Trek was making their Klein frames and producing them before they were acquired by Trek. Things have changed over the years, but the Klein paint job didn't, which was great. And they spent a lot of extra money on the paint that was actually being put on these frames, and they kept that technique down. In addition to the higher grade welds, granular tube processing, the rear entry dropouts, all those little details that Klein was perfecting, being an engineer that he is, also was carried over. So the later Kleins, actually pretty awesome in my opinion. Some people are like traditionalists, like, I want a pre-Trek Klein. That's fine and okay and dandy, but when he had the money to actually put more into the frames, it was actually when he was under the Trek umbrella. But first we have to actually strip the bike down to the actual frame and fork, well, what I do. But you can do this at home too. It just do like certain areas and sections and do a lot of flossing, a little more extra, getting around nicks and crannies kind of thing. For me, it's kind of easier to do since I do strip the bike down to the frame anyway for first inspection, second to clean the frame and make sure it's all polished in detail. I also clean all my parts when I refurbish a bike anyway, so that's kind of like I'm already here, might as well do it, right? So without further ado, let's dive into taking apart the bike and get it ready for detailing. First, pretty much just taking the wheels off. A lot of these brakes have an open and closed caliper, so you open that up, release the quick release, unscrew it out so it surpasses the lawyer tabs underneath, and boom, your wheel is released. Do the same thing to the rear. On the rear, the trick is knocking it down to its smallest cog. That pulls the derailleur out of the way, so it's easier for the wheel to drop out. Same thing for the brake, release it up front. The Kleins are a rear entry, so that means the dropouts from behind, so you'll have to guide that chain off to be able to take the wheel off like so. Then I proceed to remove the chain. This one has a quick link, so use your park tool here or any tool that you have that's designed for this. Pull the quick link out and get the chain out of the way. For you at home, you may want to save your cables. By doing that, you can just pop these little grommets off by using a pair of pliers and try to keep the threads intact so you can pull the cables out. For me, I'm replacing all the cables in the housing, so I am just going to cut through all of these to release the cables. So taking parts off front to back, I start with the front brake. Get rid of the cable on the side here. Pop that out. So this has internal cable routing, so I'm going to try to keep those cables intact, and I'll show you a trick on doing so, because you don't want those cables to drop inside because you'll be spending hours trying to rethread or relace those cables. So front brake off. Same for the rear. Take the extra cable out. Housing, and this is where I make sure I don't pull that cable completely through, but I take the housing out I do replace the housing with new housing, but I keep the scraps to measured to get a reference point of rethreading. And this just has a back bolt. Sometimes you can just hold it there, or you can take the brake itself and unscrew it out. Ooh, and don't lose this little guy. That's a special bit, and sometimes these pieces get wedged in. That is the back bolt for the rear. So I put everything back together before I put the ultrasonic cleaner. So rear derailleur, again, get that cable out of there. That's just gonna poke you. Make that go away. Keep the piece of housing for a later time, and then proceed to move the rear derailleur. And this is a great time to inspect the jockey pullers and so forth prior to cleaning, and making sure it's ready to go. Like so. The front derailleur, showing on the back side here, you pull the cable out, and the mount is on the opposite side. So you just get your tool inside, and this is where you get sometimes a lot of grit from dirt and so forth. So you want to make sure you get that Allen wrench in there flush. This is a good case in point, and that way you're not stripping your bolt. And this does feel kind of grindy. You want to make sure you pull it wide open so you can get it out without scarring, and you can see all that extra grit. That will be definitely cleaning, and that's ready to be cleaned. Okay, this has the Ultegra, Shimano Ultegra 6500 series, which has a self-extracting bolt of the crank arm here. You need to get an 8mm in there and break it free. Kind of really support the bike as much as I can so I can leverage this out. And what this is doing is self-extracting that crank arm off, like so. This is a good time when you get both sides off to inspect that bottom bracket. And rinse, recycle, repeat on the left side. And you just unscrew it out. So you have these notches here, as you'll see that they'll match up here. So once this is all cleaned, and this is a good time to check that bottom bracket, make sure it's good to go. Now let's remove the cable guide. So again, I don't want to pull the cables completely through the frame, so I want to pull these down so they kind of dangle so I can get to this guide. And these can be a little bigger because there's a lot of contaminant gets underneath here, and sometimes they rust a little, so you want to make sure you're careful not to strip anything out. In addition to, when you put it back, put a lot of extra grease in this area to keep it from rusting. So we're going to try to clean up all this. And a good healthy note, this is usually where the serial number lives. Sometimes it's stamped and stickered, or both, or one or the other. Internal cable routing is a tricky thing, and you want to make sure you do it right, because doing it wrong, think about it quite a bit before you actually execute. You want to try to leave the cable inside there. You can either use a sleeve to slide through this to hold it in place. If these cables drop inside, it's a booger to rethread them, so you want to leave something in there, either the cable itself or use a sleeve to kind of slide those back through. So what I'm going to do for this particular video is I'm going to cut both ends and crimp them so the cable stays intact in that area so it doesn't slide out, and therefore you can clean around it and do your polishing, and when it goes to time, then you can throw the sleeve in there and throw the cables through, and you're good to go. By doing so, I basically want to make sure I cut the cable and not let it slide, so it's sitting there. I'm going to take a cable in, one of these guys, and basically crimping this, and this will prevent it from dropping down into the frame. So make sure it's good and secure. And on the bottom side, I'm going to do the same thing. Cut the excess so it's out of the way. And take this cable on this side and crimp it down. That way it's safe and you can clean around the frame, and then you can reuse that cable to string up the cables later. On the front brake, I'm going to do the same thing. Make sure I have this end here And I'm just going to crimp that like so. Make sure it's secure. And the brake one is very important because if that baby drops in there, you are in a whole world of hurt. And that's with pretty much all the Klein frames, mountain road alike. So I take this other side and I crimp this as well. And on the front derailleur, same thing. You see that gets kind of caught in there. I'll be replacing all the cables in the housing on this guy. So you pull this sleeve out, got that cable, and what I can do is take a crimped in, about 3 or 4 inches on the bottom part here out. Not too long, just enough to hold its place. And pull this out, and I'm going to cut it 2 or 3, or more like 3 or 4 inches out. And get my crimped in like so. So those are, see how that just goes in there and it's safe. Yeah, since I have all the cables free, I'm just going to go ahead and just remove my handlebars completely. If this bike is fitted to you, you may not want to do that, but for this particular showing of detailing, I want to get the handlebars out of the way, and this way we have a clear area. And if you want to take your handlebars off, just make sure you mark them so when you reinstall them, you know exactly where they're supposed to go. Interruption, there is more. More, you say? Push the more button. Push it. Push it. I dare you to push it. Once you push that button, you get more details about the video you are watching, in addition to all the tools that I use in the shop, as well as suggestion for improving your ride. In addition to help me provide advocacy in the cycling community, also links to other social media accounts as well as my website to find the products I actually sell and other insights in the industry. Other videos linked below. Extend your cycling experience here on YouTube. And now back to your original programming. All right, now since we have the frame completely free of all its components for the most part, at least the painted area, it's time to do some cleaning. I use half Purple Power and half water mixture, and then I get myself a rag. And you can actually go directly onto the frame. I try to avoid getting too soaked into the actual areas that may drip into the frame itself. But this way you can get a good cleaning. And just you want to get that surface free from most of that dirt as possible before you start using your pads, like so. Okay, after doing all that elbow grease removing and that kind of thing, and as I'm cleaning this, I'm inspecting, and I did find there's some paint chippage right in here where the carbon is fine. It's still intact. It's not thread or anything, but there's some chips and some scarring here. So somebody had a little chain boo-boo going on the inside, and you can kind of see there's like gunk underneath where the tire probably picked up some extra stuff and just got in underneath there, and you try to clean that out. Sometimes it scars the paint up. But other than that, there's a couple little chips. And of course, it's an older bike, so you're not going to be completely perfect. But once you get the frame completely cleaned from any kind of dirt and debris and grease, then it's time to start using either the scratch and swirl from Adams, which I'm going to use a couple areas, and then onto the compound, which kind of helps the paint and clear coat and gets all those little buffs, little scratches out. And on top of that will be the polish is the final step. So it doesn't matter what side I start, but I do just kind of dive right into it. And I'll do one particular type, like this. I'm going to do the scratch and swirl first. And I'm going to do the whole frame, both sides. And then once that's clean, then I do the compound. One layer at a time. I don't do a section and 3 times, that kind of thing. I will do the whole frame for each step. And if I need to backtrack, then I can go and rinse, recycle, repeat, and do some additional buffing, sanding, or whatever needs to be done. So here we're just going to start with the top tube here. And what I'm going to do is move my tool around back and forth, up and down in different directions, and try to get all those little micro scratches and so forth with the scratch and swirl. You may not need to use this every time. This one has a couple extra little scratches, so I want to cover like those particular sensitive areas first with this. But if you don't want to do that and you're worried about it will damage the paint, you can just start with the compound and go from there. So what I liked about the scratch and swirl, it really kind of cuts out any of that extra gunk that you can't get off sometimes, and it gives it a real good surface area to start with. As you can probably see here, the shine is already starting to pop, and those little micro scratches that kind of go away. If I need to dive in a little bit deeper with those scratches or chips, I use a 3000 3M pad. I cut out circles to go onto my Dremel tool here that I use, and that way I can just isolate and pinpoint certain sections. But that's how you get really deep detail. But here I'm going to go over it once with the full scratch and swirl and see if I need to do any of the 3000 3M tape. So once you have the first one down, then you just take your fiber cloth and just polish it up. And this is where I start finding some of the imperfections in the paint, or this one has a small chip, and I would say feels like a small ding on the other side here. So I have been finding a couple things that it did miss when I actually inspected the bike when I purchased it. So this is where I can really fine detail the frame in addition to find all those little scary things that may compromise the bike. But nothing looks like to the point right now it's compromised, just a little more blemishes than I would have hoped for. But other than that though, the rest of the paint is still pretty good intact. and it should come out quite lively. So what I use next is the compound. This is the blue, and I put a little dab on here, push it into the pad itself, and then I proceed. What this does is kind of cleans and corrects the paint surface, so when you polish it, it's actually a lot smoother. So after I get the compound on there, I do some good swiping with my rag here to get all those little areas where I can't, and the compound will actually get on the rag itself. That way I can really get in those little nicks and crannies where the pad just cannot reach. So I just kind of dive into that and do everything I can. Do like, your shoe shine technique. Woo! Bring that shine out. And if I see anything that needs some extra addressing, this is the time I kind of go into that. Right now I don't see anything too terrible that needs to be quite looked into of redoing surface-wise. Last but not least, the polish. This I kind of do once or twice over. Just make sure it has a good coat on the frame. This really protects the frame and makes the frame pop, like so. So once it's polished, I take a different fiber cloth with not the compound on it and just go ahead and start doing my last little buffing of the frame. And again, just treat it like you're shining shoes. Just try to get that paint to just pop. And you can probably see that right now it's actually quite an improvement. And also when I came across like the chips on the chainstay here, or seat stay, that's one thing that I came across. Also, it's a little bit of material kind of scraped on the dropout of the drive side. In addition to, I found a little ding on the down tube, which, something I did miss as well. So those things I can feature or list when I actually go to sell it and take pictures. So I have full disclosure of what the frame is and if there's any boo-boos that need to be represented. So basically, this is pretty much it to the frame detailing, except for if I come across the area that I want to redo, then I kind of just backtrack and start with the first step and repeat in that section area if it needs to. But I like to do like the first once over before I do any just random cuts into the frame, because the general polishing sometimes may just make it go away. So instead of over correcting, I would do like a first swipe first of everything, and then I do finer details in certain areas that may need to be addressed like that. But let's check out this beautiful paint job in the sun. So here we have it, this beautiful Klein paint job, and hopefully I can get all that sparkle that is being generated off that frame. It's just pretty amazing that all these fine details have been put into this frame. Painted on decals, you got the higher grade aluminum welds, internal cable routing, in addition to granular tube, which is a higher in aluminum. This one you have carbon seat stays to cut out some of the vibration, rear entry dropouts to push the energy forward. Also, if you notice, it goes a cylinder to more of a squared taper. That way you can manipulate the tubing to give the most efficiency. Even the head badge is painted on. You can barely kind of see it, but it is there. One sparkly gem. If you like sparkles, this is definitely the frame for you. Well, there you have it. A perfectly polished frame, ready to go. All you need to do at this point is get your parts clean, as you can hear them in the background cleaning, and reassemble and ready to go. That's if you know how to do the whole tear down your bike and rebuild yourself. If not, you can just do these particular areas on your own, but you know, you can take the wheels off and maybe the chain, but other than that, whatever your skill set is, just to be able to expose the frame so you can actually get into cleaning deep down. But that's like the 4-layer process, from cleaning to fixing the scratches and so forth, then doing a compound as a protective layer with the polish. Makes this frame pop and protect. This is really good to do on steel frames when you're in elements of water and so forth to prevent rust, alloy, or really nice paint jobs like this to give it a little extra protection. Awesome. And as you saw in the sunlight, it is amazing. Amazing. And you'll definitely be the talk of the ride if you have a Klein paint job and you roll up to your group ride like, check this out. Especially when it's outside. Well, why wouldn't it be outside? Well, unless it's trainer day. Other than that. Well, thank you for spending time with me in the garage. If you want to know about the products and so forth that I use, they're all in the description below. Hope you have a wonderful day. If it's nice in your neck of the woods, go out there and go for a ride. Get your mind released and find that utopia, like with your beautiful paint job. Just go. Until next time, in the garage.